Welcome to Uncloseted Conversations. Even if you stumbled upon this channel by accident, you are welcome here. The stories here are from my heart, from my soul, from my pen to your ears. I hope that you will stay a little longer and open yourself to the magic of storytelling. Here I write fiction, and though not always aligning with reality, it still tugs at heartstrings. Stories are escapes and sometimes a balm to the soul. So, enjoy your time here, and if reality presses down too loud and too hard, come knock at the door, come in, take a seat, grab a coffee, and just exhale. These are veil-bound stories, and the space is free and non-judgmental. Sit back, earphones or pods in, and let's listen to another exquisite romance. Chapter 20. The First Direct Confrontation. Calanus stepped into the clearing, body still humming with the adrenaline of the fight. Silver eyes glinting, fangs bared, she scanned the darkness and froze there, in the shadows, a faint pulse of light, steady and defiant, anchoring her storm. "So, you are the one," she breathed, voice low, melodic, dangerous. "The tiny thread I cannot shred." Isabel stepped forward slowly, ruin blazing along her wrist, illuminating her pale skin and the determination in her eyes. Her voice was soft but unwavering. "I am not here to fight you, Calanus." Calanus' lips curved in that infuriatingly sarcastic smile. "You are not here to fight me, yet you are the only one holding me back. Tell me, little witch, is that courage or stupidity?" "Neither," Isabel replied, her chant threading through the forest, binding Calanus' chaos just enough to control the danger without restraining her entirely. "It is necessity. I cannot let you destroy everything, not yet." Calanus laughed low, the sound shaking leaves from the trees. "Destroy? Little witch, I am merely alive again. You feel that pulse, do you not? That fire screaming through me? You're part of it now, whether you like it or not." Isabel's ruin flared brighter, burning against the pull of Calanus' Quadbrid energy. She could feel the warmth, the danger, the hunger, and the first trace of something else: curiosity, fascination, even protection. "I can help you," she said, voice steady despite the burn along her wrist. "But only if we work carefully. One wrong move, and this forest, your power, even your phoenix, could spiral out of control." Calanus tilted her head, silver eyes glinting like molten metal. "Work carefully, you dare? After a millennium of chains and starvation, you think caution can bind me?" Isabel swallowed, stepping closer, just enough for Calanus to feel the magnetic pull between them, the thread of tethering magic that drew her attention, teasing, testing, anchoring. "Not bind, just anchor," she whispered, voice threading through Calanus' mind. "I am not your cage, Quadbrid. I am your balance." For the first time, Calanus hesitated, fangs retreating slightly, werewolf pausing, the ancient fire in her chest meeting a counterforce it could neither destroy nor fully understand. Her pulse raced, not from hunger, not from anger, but from the pull of the coven which standing before her. You are insufferably bold," she murmured, voice softer now, almost intrigued. "Do you know what you are touching, little witch? You thread yourself into me, and I may never let go." Isabel's ruin flared hotter, anchoring, resisting, connecting. Her heartbeat thrummed in sync with Calanus, a dangerous rhythm that neither wanted to break, yet both knew the chaos outside still loomed: hunters, Sebastian, AI forces, and time was slipping. "I know," she said, quiet, certain. "And I am willing. But we start here, now, or everything falls apart." Calanus' laugh broke again, low, musical, and terrifying. "Bold little witch, very well. Let us see where this tether leads us." The forest fell silent for a heartbeat, energy crackling like a storm on the horizon, the first true connection forged between Quadbrid and Coven, which, dangerous, unstable, irresistible. Chapter 21. The Tether Ignites. The moon dipped low behind the sparse red oak canopy, casting fragmented silver across the clearing. The scent of blood, the charred remnants of the hunters, and the lingering hum of residual magic wove into a charged, electric air. Calanus stood in the center, silver eyes scanning the shadows for the anchor she could feel but not yet see. Every breath she took thrummed with the pulse of power she had not felt in millennia, a fire that responded to a presence beyond the physical. Then, from the shadows, it came the subtle warmth, the silent tug, the unmistakable thread of coven magic. She felt it coiling around her, teasing, testing, yet never forcing. "So, this is the source," she murmured, fangs flashing in a grin that was both playful and predatory. "Clever little witch, you feel me as I feel you. Dangerous, isn't it?" Isabel stepped forward, just enough to let her ruin flare brighter, bathing the space in molten silver light. Her eyes met Calanus, not fear, not submission, but a quiet certainty, anchored in something older, stronger, and sharper than any blade. "It is necessary," Isabel whispered, her voice threading through Calanus' mind, a soft pulse of restraint and challenge intertwined. "I cannot let your fire burn without guidance, not yet, not until we understand the flames." Calanus laughed low, that intoxicating sound of centuries of arrogance and hunger, tempered now with fascination. "Guidance? Little witch, I have ruled for millennia. I have devoured, dominated, and destroyed. What guidance could you possibly offer me?" The pulse between them thrummed louder, a rhythm neither could ignore. Calanus felt the warmth of it in her chest, deep inside the phoenix energy still dormant within her, and something ancient shifted recognition, intrigue, a thread of trust weaving through centuries of instinctual dominance. "You anchor me," she admitted, voice low, almost reluctant, teeth grazing her lip. "And I like it. Danger, risk, unpredictability, but you are steady where all else is chaos. Tell me, why do I feel you in every movement, every heartbeat?" Isabel's ruin flared hotter, and she stepped closer, a measured, deliberate movement that invited, but did not demand. "Because I am here, Calanus. I am present. I am the balance you didn't know you needed." The forest around them seemed to exhale, leaves trembling, shadows stretching, energy shimmering like heat over fire. Calanus' fangs retracted slightly, her silver eyes softening, the storm inside her tempered by the quiet pulse of the coven witch. "You are insufferably bold," she breathed, every word carrying centuries of arrogance, hunger, and now, curiosity that bordered on reverence. "And yet, I cannot ignore you. You are mine to unravel, little witch." Isabel met her gaze, calm, measured, the ruin blazing like molten silver against the Quadbrid fire in Calanus. "And I am not yours to claim. Only to meet, only to tether, to guide when the storm threatens to consume everything." The air between them thickened, crackling with energy, desire, and the undeniable pull of intertwined power. For the first time, Calanus did not strike, did not destroy, did not devour. She simply felt the connection, the tether, the fire that could either consume or create. And in that moment, the forest held its breath, witness to the collision of ancient Quadbrid power and the quiet, anchored might of a coven witch. The first true bond had ignited, not of submission or dominance, but of mutual recognition, magnetic pull, and dangerous promise. Chapter 22. The First Trial. The forest trembled as distant explosions echoed through the valley. Sebastian's AI drones, relentless and precise, had adapted, scanning the terrain and firing with mechanical efficiency. The hunters regrouped after Calanus' initial assault, circled like shadows, ritual knives glinting. Calanus' eyes glimmered silver in the moonlight, body poised, each movement calculated yet flowing with raw instinct. But the pulse of the coven tether, the quiet thread of Isabel's presence, weaved through her, guiding her strikes without restraining them. "This little witch, she shapes me without my consent," Calanus muttered under her breath, fangs bared in a grin. Annoying and irresistible. Isabel stepped further into the clearing, ruin blazing bright, every wordless pulse threading through Calanus' energy, subtly nudging, anchoring, influencing. She did not touch, did not speak aloud, but her power carved a path through the chaos, forcing Calanus to move where she could be effective, avoiding collateral destruction. A hunter lunged from the shadows, blade aimed at Calanus' neck. In a heartbeat, Calanus twisted, dodging with impossible grace, and felt the slight pull from Isabel's thread, nudging her balance, whispering safety without interference. With a flick of her wrist, the hunter crumpled, blood sizzling against the Quadbrid energy. "You guide me like a shadow I cannot see," Calanus whispered, voice low, almost amused. "Do you know what you are doing, little witch?" Isabel did not answer, letting the ruin flare, pulsing like a heartbeat into Calanus' veins, threading their energies together. She focused, anchoring, sensing, pulling just enough to enhance, not dominate. Another wave of drones descended, scanning, firing. Calanus' silver eyes glinted, teeth flashing. "Very well, let us see how our little collaboration fares." She moved like lightning, striking with deadly precision, guided subtly by Isabel's tether. Each hunter felled, each drone shattered, their combined forces dancing in perfect harmony, though neither spoke. The connection between ancient fire and coven light now tangible, alive, and dangerously beautiful. At one point, Calanus froze mid-strike, sensing something deeper in the thread, a pulse of intention, not just guidance, but challenge, curiosity, even care. Her grin softened, an almost imperceptible quirk. "Clever little witch, you dare to influence me, and yet I crave it." Isabel's ruin flared hotter in response, a silent acknowledgement, a test of trust, a daring spark. The forest seemed to hum with energy, leaves trembling, air crackling with potential. Together, they swept through the hunters and drones, a storm of silver and light, chaos tempered by the first true collaboration of Quadbrid and Coven. By the time the clearing fell silent, the aftermath shimmering with magic and blood, both paused, breathing, sensing the connection still pulsing between them. Calanus' silver eyes locked on Isabel's faintly glowing ruin. "We are dangerous together," she admitted, voice low, a rumble of centuries of power and amusement. "And I have only begun to understand the thread binding us." Isabel met her gaze, calm, measured, the tether pulsing like molten silver through the Quadbrid storm. "We are only beginning, Calanus. Only beginning." Chapter 23. The Desperate Bargain. Sebastian sat in the glass-walled tower, the city lights glinting off his tablet like a cage of diamonds. In his hands rested the jar of phoenix ash, the last tether to the Quadbrid's ancient power. Every heartbeat he heard from Calanus' ongoing chaos resonated through the building, a reminder that control was slipping from his grasp. "Isabel," he hissed into the encrypted call, voice tight with urgency. "You have to understand, without your help, this will all fall apart. I can contain Calanus. We can regain control together." But Isabel's response was measured, lightly teasing, entirely unshaken. Her ruin glowed faintly against the shadows of her apartment, threading its presence through his connection without revealing too much. "Sebastian," she said, voice smooth, calm, almost amused. "You think the phoenix ash is leverage? You think you hold anything over me? You have underestimated far more than you know." He leaned forward, desperation clawing through his polished veneer. "You don't understand. That ash, it is the only thing that can restore Calanus. You're the only one who can control the tether, who can anchor her. Without you, everyone dies. You could have everything back, the company, your reputation, your career. Everything." Isabel smiled faintly, a slow, deliberate curve that made Sebastian's gut twist. She did not move, did not show the panic he expected. "Everything, Gallagher," she whispered, almost mockingly. "You want me to gamble everything I am, everything I've survived for, your empire? Your pride? The ashes of something you never understood." Sebastian swallowed hard. "You're the only one who can stop her. If you don't. If I don't." Isabel interrupted softly, leaning into the ruin's pulse, threading a subtle magical echo that made his AI systems flicker. "Do you think I am yours to command? Do you think the covens or the Quadbrid owe you compliance? No, you've boxed yourself in, Gallagher. You've played with forces beyond your understanding. And now, you're desperate." He gritted his teeth, desperation turning to anger. "I can give you everything. I can." "You can give nothing to me," she said firmly, cutting through every plea, every threat, every offer. Your desperation is transparent, and your leverage is nothing. You underestimate both Calanus and me. I am not a tool. I am not a pawn. And you will not dictate my choices. Sebastian's jaw tightened, the jar of ash rattling slightly in his hand. He realized, too late, that the very thread he thought he controlled, Isabel's tether to Calanus, was entirely out of his reach. Isabel's ruin flared brighter for a moment, echoing through Calanus' senses, letting her know without words that she was no longer bound to Sebastian's manipulations. Calanus paused in the forest, sensing the shift in the human who had dared to wield her power. "Do not mistake my silence for compliance, Gallagher," Isabel whispered. "Your phoenix ash is yours to hoard. It will not bend me to your will." Sebastian's shoulders slumped, the desperation now raw, the veneer of control shattered. "Then, what will you do?" he asked, voice barely above a whisper, knowing he no longer held any leverage at all. "What I must," Isabel replied, calm, unwavering. "And it does not include saving your empire." The ruin pulsed hotter, a silent, warning flame threading its presence through the Quadbrid, through the forest, through the chaos he had tried to command. For the first time, Sebastian understood. He was not dealing with a pawn. He was facing the architect of the new order, and it would not answer to him. Chapter 24. Phoenix Ascendant. The red oak clearing pulsed with energy, the forest itself trembling under the weight of forces long dormant and long denied. Calanus stood in the center, every muscle taut with ancient power, phoenix fire flickering beneath her skin, hungry for release, yearning for rebirth. Isabel stepped forward, ruin blazing along her wrist, threads of coven magic weaving through the Quadbrid storm around Calanus, precise, controlled, and yet unstoppable. The first faint spark of recognition flared between them, a bond of energy, of trust, of shared purpose. This is the moment," Calanus whispered, voice low and reverent, not arrogance, not sarcasm, something new, something almost human. "You are here. You are the key I needed, little witch." Isabel nodded, focusing every pulse, every rhythm, the ruin's light threading into Calanus' veins, coaxing, stabilizing, channeling the phoenix energy that had been dormant for millennia. "Then let us begin," she said, voice calm, commanding, anchoring Calanus without restraint, allowing the fire to awaken safely. Calanus closed her eyes, inhaling deep, feeling the fire surge in her chest, raw and untamed. Her wings, long, black, and feathered with silver tips, trembled as energy crackled across the clearing. She could feel her veins glowing, her senses expanding beyond the forest, the mountain, the night itself. Isabel stepped closer, the ruin flaring brighter, threads of magic entwining around Calanus' phoenix core, pulsing in sync with her heartbeat. She whispered the ancient incantation her mother had taught her, each word threading the light of the coven into the fire of the Quadbrid. The air split with soundless thunder. Leaves ripped from the red oaks as the energy surged outward, branches glowing, roots pulsing, the very earth responding to the rebirth. Calanus' eyes opened, molten silver and gold swirling together as the phoenix erupted fully within her, wings unfurling, light blazing, fire dancing on every surface. "Feel it, feel everything," Calanus roared, voice booming across the forest, the cadence of centuries of power finally free. "This is me reborn." Isabel held firm, her magic weaving like threads through the inferno, anchoring, shaping, harmonizing, keeping the phoenix from burning everything around them. The ruin burned bright on her wrist, but not in pain. It was connection, symbiosis, power shared and balanced. The energy spiraled upward, a tower of fire and silver light, casting shadows of hunters and drones fleeing, Sebastian's AI scrambling in terror. The phoenix's cry echoed, a sound that was both scream and song, destruction and creation. "Calanus, trust me," Isabel whispered, letting her pulse flow fully, melding her coven magic with the Quadbrid fire, allowing the phoenix to stabilize and bloom. Calenus' laughter rang out, pure and intoxicating, a sound of liberation, of mastery, of divine rebirth. I trust you, little witch. You are fire and anchor both. Together, we are unstoppable. The forest glowed, every tree, every leaf, every shadow pulsing in response. Hunters fled, AI drones shattered, and Sebastian, watching from his tower, realized he could no longer manipulate or contain what he had unleashed. The phoenix had returned, and it was tethered, balanced by the smallest, quietest spark he had ever underestimated. Calenus and Isabel stepped closer, not touching, yet the bond between them tangible, alive, and thrumming with energy. The Quadbrid fire, the coven tether, all in harmony. A storm of power finally mastered. This is only the beginning, Calenus murmured, silver eyes reflecting molten gold. And yet, everything has changed, Isabel replied, calm, sure. The ruin now a symbol of shared power, shared destiny, and unbreakable bond. The forest exhaled, the night trembling with the pulse of the phoenix, and the world would never be the same. Chapter 25, Aftermath and Reckoning. The city skyline shimmered through Sebastian's office windows, but the view was meaningless. His AI defenses were failing, systems glitching from the magical backlash that spread like wildfire. Every drone he deployed against the Quadbrid and Coven forces either exploded midair or spun uselessly, scanning phantom targets. Sebastian sat, hands trembling over the phoenix ash jar. For a moment, he considered using it, offering it as bait, but the thought faltered. The bond he had tried to manipulate, the tether between Calenus and Isabel, was now fully alive, pulsing, untouchable by his technology or greed. Isabel, he murmured, voice tight, desperation bleeding into every syllable. You don't understand. I can fix this. We can contain her, you can anchor her. The reply came not in words, but through the pulse of the ruin she carried. Calenus felt it instantly, a silent warning, a shield of intent, a refusal to obey human command. Sebastian's pleas bounced off the invisible wall of Coven magic, echoing emptily in the building. Outside, the red oak forest and the surrounding lands bore the signs of their collision. Trees scorched where phoenix fire met human weapons, hunters scattered and trembling, their formation shattered, ritual energies distorted and raw. Calenus moved among them with lethal grace, yet guided by Isabel's anchoring pulse, her strikes precise, avoiding unnecessary death. She paused at the edge of the clearing, eyes scanning, senses extending, feeling Isabel nearby without seeing her. You anchor me, she whispered into the night, voice both a command and a confession. I feel you. I am tethered, and yet free. Isabel's ruin flared brighter, a soft counterpoint, threading through the phoenix energy, weaving control without domination. The first true equilibrium between the Quadbrid and Coven forces had been achieved, a dance of fire and light, chaos and control. Back in the city, Sebastian's phone vibrated incessantly. Board members, legal threats, and investors were collapsing under the weight of his failed operations and the leaked evidence of his destruction and manipulation. His empire teetered. His power was gone, the phoenix and the witch he sought to control out of reach. He clenched the jar of ash, a last-ditch symbol of hope, or so he thought, but the threads of his world had unraveled beyond repair. Every flicker of light from the ruin, every pulse of Calenus' phoenix, reminded him he no longer controlled the game. And in the forest clearing, the night itself seemed to lean in, watching Calenus and Isabel. Together, they had reshaped the battlefield, unbound ancient fire, and demonstrated a force no human, no board, no hunter, could contain. This is just the beginning, Calenus murmured, wings stretching, silver and gold gleaming in the moonlight. They will come again. The world will try to bend me, us. But it will fail. Isabel stepped from the shadows, calm, collected, ruins still pulsing like a heartbeat, echoing her commitment and her control. Then we ensure it cannot, she said simply. The first full, tangible collaboration complete, their bond now as much a weapon as it was a tether of trust. The forest exhaled. the night trembled. And the world, from city to mountain, knew the phoenix had returned, and it was no longer alone. Chapter 26. Ash and Collapse. Sebastian's office was deathly silent. The city lights outside seemed cold and meaningless, glinting off his polished surfaces with mocking brilliance. He held the phoenix ash in his hands, staring at it as if its golden dust could suddenly obey him again. But the fire, the phoenix, the Quadbrid energy, all of it pulsed elsewhere, anchored, stabilized, alive. The ash was nothing more than inert remains. It was a relic, a memory, a fragment of a power no longer bound to his will. "It's just ash," he whispered, disbelief cracking his voice. The weight of reality crushed him, every scheme, every manipulation, every threat, all meaningless against what he had unleashed but failed to control. Far from the city, in the forests of red oak, the Van Helsing descendants gathered, tense and calculating. Their rituals, their centuries of knowledge, their weapons honed against supernatural threats, they were formidable, yes, but the display of Calanus and Isabel had shattered their certainty. The eldest of the clan, a woman with steel-gray hair and eyes sharp as obsidian, spoke first. "They are different. The Quadbrid fire, the coven tether, even our spells cannot hold them. We cannot stop them." Another hunter, younger, bristling with indignation, slammed a fist into the stone altar. "We've faced vampires, witches, hybrids. We've never seen anything like this. They are unstoppable." And she was right. From the clearing, the phoenix blazed, wings unfurled, light and fire dancing in tandem with the subtle, precise magic of the coven which, threading through every movement, every strike, every calculated breath. Calanus moved with a predator's grace, eyes glowing molten silver, while Isabel's ruin flared with anchoring brilliance, their bond a symphony of fire and control, instinct and precision. Every hunter and drone that dared approach was met with a force they could not calculate, could not contain, could not anticipate. Back in the city, Sebastian dropped the jar of ash. It scattered across the marble floor, tiny flecks of gold glinting in the harsh light, utterly powerless. His empire, his board, the investors, all teetering on the edge of collapse. He realized he had become irrelevant, outplayed, and outmatched. "No, no, this cannot be," he muttered, panic flaring. Every encrypted system he controlled was failing, every AI, every weapon. Nothing could touch the force he had released and failed to command. Outside, the Van Helsing clan realized the truth. They were witnesses to the impossible. Centuries of training, legacy, and bloodlines could not contend with the fusion of Calanus' Quadbrid might and Isabel's coven mastery. We retreat," the eldest whispered, voice heavy with disbelief. "There is no stopping them. Not alone, not together, not ever." The forest exhaled, the air thick with power, the night trembling, the world itself shifting. Calanus' phoenix fire danced, Isabel's ruin pulsed, and together they claimed the battlefield, the night, and the balance of power. Sebastian slumped against his chair, the final thread of hope broken. The ash had become just ash. And the old order, human or hunter alike, could no longer dictate the fate of what they had awakened. Chapter 27. Wings and Ruin. Calanus hovered just above the clearing, wings coiled back under her ribs like a dark promise, muscles taut, the subtle shimmer of silver and gold threading through black feathers. Below her heart, the werewolf pulse throbbed, steady and fierce. Her vampire side, smug and predatory, assessed the world with sharp teeth and sharper instincts, but it was the witch within her, the ancient, Quadbrid witch, that recognized the weight of the coven magic pulsing in the air. Isabel stood at the edge of the clearing, ruin flaring softly along her wrist. She did not move closer, she did not yield. Her eyes were calm, calculating, unblinking, filled with the fire of her own mastery. The forest around them seemed to breathe with their tension, every leaf and shadow attuned to the balance of power. "Little witch," Calanus said, voice smooth and low, a tease, a challenge, a spark. "You anchor me, yet you are untamed. I like that. Isabel's eyes narrowed slightly, but her stance did not waver. I do not exist for your amusement, Callanus Demetria. Her tone was even, measured, not frightened, not bowing, just fact. Callanus' smirk curved slowly, wings flexing, each feather like a blade of shadow and light. Yet here you are, holding the reins without even touching them. Clever, cautious, and far too disciplined for your own good. The forest pulsed between them. The phoenix energy lingered in the air, warm and consuming, yet anchored by the subtle threads of Isabel's coven magic. Callanus tilted her head, studying the witch, savoring the tension, the restraint, the intelligence that refused to be dazzled by her fire. You think your coven can hold me? Your little rituals, your careful threading of power, she murmured, voice teasing, danger and playfulness coiled together. I do not need to hold you, Isabel replied quietly, almost serene, letting the ruin flare slightly, letting Callanus feel the edge of her restraint and control. I only need to anchor the fire where it belongs, not to you, not to me, but to balance. Callanus' laugh, soft and low, drifted through the trees, a sound of amusement, curiosity, and something more, something almost like wonder. Balance, such a boring word. Yet somehow, you make it intoxicating. Tell me, can balance tempt me as fire does? Isabel did not move, did not smile, but the ruin pulsed in counterpoint to the phoenix beneath Callanus' ribs, a quiet yet undeniable acknowledgement of connection. Fire tempts fools and gods alike, she said simply. I am neither. For a moment, they just stood there, the phoenix coiled and restrained, eyes glinting molten silver. The coven magic threaded invisibly through the Quadbrid's fire. Predator and anchor. Fire and control. Arrogance and discipline. And yet, neither yielded. Not fully. Not yet. Chapter 28. Sparks in the Clearing. Callanus drifted closer, wings now retreated under her ribs, the phoenix fire humming beneath her skin. Every step, every tilt of her head, radiated challenge and amusement. So, little witch, she said, voice low and teasing, eyes glinting molten silver. Do you always insist on standing so, stubbornly still? Or is it just me that makes your pulse skip? Isabel didn't flinch. The ruin along her wrist pulsed softly, threads of coven magic coiling invisibly, holding the fire in check without a single outward gesture. Her gaze was steady, unwavering. I am not here for your games, Callanus Demetria. Callanus smirked, tilting her head, letting the silver-gold fire in her veins shimmer subtly. But I rather enjoy games. And I rather enjoy testing patience. Especially patience as disciplined as yours. Testing me won't earn you anything, Isabel replied, voice calm, precise. Your fire is impressive. Dangerous. Uncontrolled. And I am not impressed. Callanus laughed softly, a sound that rippled through the forest, scattering leaves like tiny sparks caught in a flame. Impressed? My dear witch, I am centuries old, more fire than flesh, and I find it deliciously frustrating that someone like you dares to stand unmoved before me. Isabel's lips tightened, but she did not retreat. Her ruin flared a little brighter, threading a tether through the phoenix beneath Callanus' ribs, anchoring without yielding. Frustration is not a weakness. You will learn the difference soon enough. Callanus' smirk widened. Oh, I am learning plenty, that you are clever, cautious, annoyingly competent. But tell me, little witch, does your magic pulse this fast when you're not holding me in check? It pulses only for purpose, Isabel replied, voice steady, as if daring Callanus to understand that fire alone cannot sway her. Not for teasing. Not for arrogance. Not for attraction. The phoenix under Callanus' ribs stirred, a low, coiled energy, flexing, impatient, demanding release. But even purpose has its temptations, she said, voice a low growl threaded with amusement. And fire is never patient. Isabel's ruin pulsed, matching, countering, anchoring. The forest seemed to lean closer, the night holding its breath as the tension between them throbbed, alive, unyielding, and deliciously combustible. Do not mistake restraint for submission, Isabel whispered, letting the words carry like a spell, grounding the fire beneath Calanus' ribs without diminishing it. Calanus' laugh rumbled low, teasing, intrigued, undeterred, and she hovered there, inches away, eyes glinting molten silver. I would never, little witch. But I might enjoy the challenge of breaking it. Isabel's pulse of magic answered back silently, a measured counter to the Quadbrid fire, refusing surrender, testing, holding, guiding. The first sparks of true dance had begun, fire against restraint, power against anchor, centuries-old arrogance against unwavering discipline. Chapter 29. The Little Witch Who Would Not Bend. Calanus circled slowly, the phoenix fire arching in silver-gold currents beneath her skin. Every movement exuded grace, lethal intent, and that centuries-old arrogance that had always commanded obedience. You know, she said, voice low and teasing, a smirk tugging at the corners of her lips, in all my millennia, nothing, no human, no creature, not even the fiercest of my own kind, has ever resisted me. And yet, here you stand, unshaken, unafraid. Isabel did not blink. The ruin along her wrist pulsed softly, threads of coven magic weaving invisibly, a quiet anchor, a silent defiance. Resistance is not about fear, she said calmly. It is about choice. Something you might not remember. Calanus laughed, low and rich, the sound vibrating through the clearing like distant thunder. Choice, such a boring word, little witch. I've had all the choices in the world, and they bend, they crumble, they beg. Yet you're a puzzle I cannot devour. Do not mistake my restraint for weakness, Isabel replied, voice steady, eyes calm, unwavering, letting the ruin pulse in silent rhythm. I do not yield. I do not break. And I will not become a tool. Not for you, not for anyone. Calanus' smirk deepened. Ah, how delightful. A little witch with spine and fire. I almost enjoy your defiance. Almost? Isabel's tone was clipped, precise, but there was a subtle edge, a flicker of challenge that Calanus felt keenly. Calanus hovered closer, eyes glinting molten silver, every feather like a blade poised, letting the fire stir just enough to tease, just enough to tempt, letting centuries of power meet this fragile, stubborn anchor. I wonder, how long before I make you bend? How long before your careful control falters under curiosity, under fire? Isabel's ruin flared slightly, anchoring, countering, measuring, but she did not step back. That is not my choice to make, she said softly, letting the words carry weight like a spell, a tether around Calanus' fire without diminishing it. Calanus laughed again, low and rumbly, Quadbrid energy thrumming with an impatient, coiled hunger. I haven't been denied in a millennium, and yet, here you are. That heart, stubborn, defiant. I think I will enjoy this. For the first time in centuries, Calanus felt a thrill not from conquest or power, but from challenge. This little witch, this anchor of coven magic, refused to bow, refused to break, refused to be charmed. And something deep within Calanus stirred, a curiosity, a hunger, a desire not just to push, but to unravel the careful defenses of this witch. We shall see, little witch, she murmured, eyes locking with Isabel's. If your heart can hold this fire, or if I will burn it wide open. The night leaned closer, shadows trembling in anticipation. Two forces, ancient and young, testing, teasing, coiling, neither yielding, but the first sparks of a bond that could ignite the world had begun. Chapter 30. Fire and Clumsy Temptation. Calanus hovered just beyond the treeline, the Quadbrid's fire pulsing in irregular bursts with curiosity and hunger for connection. She was aware of every flicker of the ruin on Isabel's wrist, how it pulsed in quiet rhythm, anchoring, resisting, yet calling to her. You know, Calanus began, voice low and teasing, circling Isabel like a predator admiring her prey. Most mortals, most witches, would have fled, begged, or fallen silent by now. But you stand like a storm, anchored, unyielding, and yet irresistibly tempting. Isabel raised a brow, unimpressed but curious. Tempting? Or annoying, she asked, voice calm, even, holding the ruin like a shield and a lure simultaneously. Calanus smirked. The line is blurred, isn't it? You resist me so fiercely, and yet, every second I am near. I want to push, to tease, to unravel, to see if I can ignite more than fire in you. With a sudden flutter, she swooped closer, graceful but clumsy in her enthusiasm, almost brushing against Isabel's shoulder, testing, teasing. Do you feel it? The fire? The pulse? The thrill of it? Isabel did not flinch. Her ruin flared slightly, anchoring, measuring, responding to Kalinus' energy without giving in. I feel it, she said softly, and I choose not to yield. Kalinus laughed, a low, amused rumble, frustration and delight mingling in her every movement. She twirled in the air, coiling and uncoiling, a show of power and clumsy grace. Persistent little witch. I think I will enjoy every moment of trying to sway you. Sway me? Isabel's tone was clipped, measured, but the faint quiver in her ruin betrayed a stir of intrigue. You misunderstand, Kalinus Demetria. You may try, but my purpose is not amusement. My heart is not yours to play with. Kalinus tilted her head, eyes molten silver catching the moonlight, the Quadbrid energy coiling like a living thing beneath her skin. But hearts are tricky things, aren't they? Sometimes they burn before they bend. Sometimes they sing before they break. I am patient, mostly. But I do enjoy the chase. With a sudden motion, she stepped a few feet from Isabel, clumsy yet deliberate, fire pulsing, eyes alight with mischief and something deeper. Tell me, little witch, how long before you even admit that I intrigue you? Isabel's ruin flared again, pulsing in quiet defiance, anchoring the fire yet acknowledging it, teasing without giving in. Intrigue is not surrender, she said softly, voice carrying both challenge and caution. Kalinus let a slow, predatory smile curl over her lips. Oh, I know, but millennia of denial have never stopped me before. The forest held its breath. Fire and ruin pulsed in tandem, a dance of teasing, clumsy seduction, patience, and defiance. Kalinus' attempts were bold, sometimes forceful, sometimes awkward, but always with the unspoken challenge, to see if this little witch could truly resist the Quadbrid's fire. Chapter 31. Shadows at the Threshold. Isabel entered her small apartment, the familiar scent of aged wood and coffee lingering in the air, a sharp contrast to the forest's wildness. She moved with precision, shutting the door behind her, letting the city night outside hum softly. Her ruin glowed faintly, a reminder of the magic that anchored and protected her. She let out a breath, half relief, half frustration, aware of the phoenix fire still coiled in Kalinus, the thrill of their encounter lingering like heat in her veins. And then she felt it, a presence that did not knock, did not announce itself, yet filled the small apartment with the scent of smoke and fire, power and menace. Kalinus, Isabel whispered, heart steady, ruin pulsing, not out of fear but of anticipation. This is my sanctuary. You do not enter without permission. A soft laugh, low and rich, rolled through the room. Permission. Always such a formal thing, little witch. I prefer entrances that are dramatic. Kalinus stepped over the threshold, eyes molten silver glinting in the dim light. I am not here to leave you alone, Isabel. I am here because, well, centuries of persistence have taught me that I do not know when to quit. Isabel tightened her hands slightly, feeling the pulse of power, both hers and Kalinus, brush against her like a tide she could not control. Persistence does not equal consent, she said calmly, voice carrying both authority and intrigue. Kalinus stepped closer, graceful, deliberate, yet somehow clumsy in her eagerness. Oh, I know, little witch. But consent is not the game I am playing. I am testing. Seeing how far I can push, how high I can lift, how irresistible I can be. Isabel's ruin flared softly, holding her ground, yet betraying a subtle pull toward the Quadbrid presence. She let out a quiet breath. You are infuriating. Good, Kalinus purred, a smirk curling across her lips. I rather enjoy infuriating the clever ones. Makes the game more worthwhile. She moved closer still, close enough that the heat from her body brushed Isabel's skin, close enough that her heartbeat flexed in rhythm with her pulse, testing boundaries without breaking them. Tell me, little witch, how long before you admit that fire tempts more than caution? Isabel did not step back. She did not yield. Yet the ruin pulsed in rhythm with Calenus' heartbeat, a subtle acknowledgement of the magnetic, dangerous pull between them. Temptation is not surrender, she said softly, letting the words hover like a spell between them. Calenus laughed softly, a sound of frustration, fascination, and something deeper stirring, and she let herself drift just a hair closer, not invading, but daring, teasing, persistent. I like that about you, little witch. Most would bend in a heartbeat. You're a storm I cannot snuff out. And in that quiet apartment, far from the forest, far from the world outside, the first real sparks of desire, challenge, and potential surrender coiled tight, ready to ignite, as Calenus vowed silently that she would not leave until she had won that stubborn, clever heart. Chapter 32, Trial by Fire. The apartment was quiet, but the air throbbed with tension, heavy and electric, each heartbeat and breath amplified in the confined space. Calenus leaned casually against the doorframe, fire coiling beneath her skin like a restless serpent. You know, she began, voice low, teasing, circling Isabel slowly. I could simply sit here and let the fire do its work. But where would the fun be in that? I prefer challenges. Isabel, sitting on the edge of her worn leather couch, hands lightly glowing with the threads of coven magic, met her gaze steadily. Challenges do not always end the way you hope, Calenus Demetria. Oh, I know, Calenus purred, stepping closer, circling with a predator's grace, eyes molten silver catching the dim lamplight. But I rather enjoy seeing how clever, how stubborn, how alive you truly are. She reached out suddenly, fingertips brushing the aura of magic that pulsed along the ruin on Isabel's wrist, careful not to touch her skin, testing, teasing, sparking reactions. Isabel's ruin flared instinctively, threading invisible anchors through the Quadbrid fire, countering the pressure without giving herself away. She did not pull back, only allowed a soft exhale. You are infuriating, she murmured. Calenus laughed, soft, low, full of mischief and frustration, leaning closer until her hand touched the back of Isabel's chair. That is the point, little witch. I have not been challenged in centuries, not like this. You are fascinating. And frustrating. And far too clever for your own good. She straightened abruptly, almost playfully, and manifested small sparks of phoenix fire in her palm, letting them flicker close to Isabel's fingers, daring her to react. Tell me, how do you resist me when the fire calls? When the magic hums between us like a heartbeat. Isabel's ruin pulsed, soft yet steady, anchoring Calenus' energy without dimming it, keeping her focus, yet betraying the slightest flicker of intrigue. Resistance is not weakness, she said softly. And restraint is a form of power you clearly have not measured. Calenus stepped closer again, closer than etiquette or sense would allow, hand brushing lightly against Isabel's side, fire coiling, pulsing, teasing. Power. Oh, I am well aware of power. But power alone does not teach patience, endurance, cunning. You have all of that. And it makes me want more. The air between them thrummed. Sparks of Quadbrid energy and coven magic danced invisibly, threads of fire and anchor winding around each other like a secret conversation. Calenus' smirk softened ever so slightly, her arrogance tempered by fascination, curiosity, and something dangerously tender. Do you ever relent, little witch? She whispered, voice low, almost intimate. Isabel's ruin pulsed, anchoring, countering, teasing in kind, and she replied, voice steady, careful, but laced with subtle challenge, only when it serves purpose. Not for charm, not for fire, not for desire. Calenus' laugh was low, rumbling through the apartment like smoldering embers, and she allowed herself a slow bow, not in submission, but in admiration of the strength she could not crush. Very well, little witch. We shall see how long this game lasts. And in the quiet apartment, the fire and the anchor coiled tighter, the challenge unbroken, the tension sharpened, as centuries of power and human cunning tested each other for the first time, not as enemies, but as sparks in a dance that promised both danger and something far more consuming. Chapter 33. The Triple Fire. Kalanus' muscles flexed beneath her coat, coiled tight like serpents ready to strike. Her eyes glimmered silver, flicking with predatory awareness, while the fire beneath her ribs, the phoenix flame, swelled, impatient and hungry. You think a little mortal magic can hold me," she whispered, voice low, almost a growl. Her words were velvet and steel, her werewolf teeth glinting faintly beneath her lips, vampire fangs craving, pulse pounding. She lifted a hand and flames danced along her fingertips, a display of pure phoenix fire meant to intimidate, to compel, to seduce, or destroy. The room filled with heat, embers floating in the air like restless spirits, swirling toward Isabel. But Isabel remained still. Ruin glowing faintly on her wrist, fingers curling in silent anchor, her eyes calm, defiant. The phoenix fire fizzled against the barrier of her magic, impotent, bending to none of Kalanus' will. A low growl escaped Kalanus, the vampire inside her snarling, testing the scent of fear, searching for weakness in the little witch. Interesting. So clever, so persistent. And yet, I am not used to being resisted. The werewolf side flexed, muscles beneath her skin coiling, claws itching to tear, rip, claim. Yet the witch in her, ancient, calculating, deadly, intervened, whispering patience, measuring, testing boundaries. Kalanus let the fire ebb, a slow, deliberate exhale of heat, a wave of power meant to unsettle and tempt, moving closer, circling, coiling like a living thing around Isabel. "Oh, I can play many ways, little witch. I can charm, I can tease, I can burn, I can hunt, and yet you resist. Fascinating." She crouched slightly, eyes gleaming silver gold, phoenix flames lacing her fingers, a shimmer of werewolf strength pulsing beneath her skin, and she whispered, "I will do everything, everything to break you, to see what hides beneath that clever little anchor of yours." Isabel's ruin pulsed brighter, anchoring, countering, threading through Kalanus' fire, and yet the Quadbrid sensed something else, not fear, but recognition, something primal stirring within her. "You may try," Isabel said, calm yet firm, "but fire alone does not sway will, and strength alone cannot bend purpose." Kalanus tilted her head, witch magic flexing like a predator's, phoenix fire flaring, vampire hunger lurking, werewolf power coiling beneath her ribs. "Ah, stubborn little witch. You are far too clever. But cleverness will not stop me from trying. I like a challenge." She stepped closer again, fire flickering along her skin, a whisper of flame brushing Isabel's anchor, testing, teasing, pressing, yet restrained by curiosity and fascination. Every element of her, the phoenix, the werewolf, the vampire, the ancient witch, was awake, alive, hungry for dominance, control, and something she had not felt in millennia, intrigue that borders on desire. "You resist me," Kalanus murmured, voice low, full of predatory patience, "and I will not let this end until I know why. Until I see what is hidden beneath that clever little witch." And in that quiet apartment, fire and magic danced invisibly. The Quadbrid versus Coven, millennia versus mortal defiance, a collision of arrogance, desire, power, and restraint, each pulse, each flicker, each ember. A test of will and fire that neither could ignore. Chapter 34. Clash of Fire and Anchor. The apartment hummed with tension, every shadow quivering under the heat of Kalanus' fire, every surface thrumming with unspoken magic. Kalanus flexed beneath her coat, muscles rippling with werewolf strength, fangs glinting faintly in the dim light, eyes silver gold and molten with curiosity and hunger. "You resist, and yet here you are," she whispered, voice a growl and a purr all at once. "I must admit, little witch, this is new. No one has ever dared." Isabel stood, ruin glowing like a heartbeat on her wrist, anchoring the fire, the hunger, the predatory pull, threading through Kalanus' flame without faltering. "Do not mistake my caution for fear," she said, voice calm, yet each syllable rippling through the apartment like a spell. Calanus grinned, the kind of smile that promised danger, mischief, and centuries of unanswered questions. She raised both hands, fingers flickering with phoenix sparks, the heat of the fire pressing against Isabel's magical anchor, testing the boundaries, teasing, daring her to react. "I will not be resisted forever," Calanus murmured, stepping closer. "I will push, prod, and play until I know what hides beneath your clever little exterior." Isabel braced herself, feet steady, ruin glowing brighter, coven threads threading invisibly into the air, holding back the fire, yet letting it brush against her like a challenge. "And I will not yield, no matter how alluring your fire, how sharp your claws, how deep your centuries of arrogance run." Calanus flexed suddenly, a shockwave of phoenix energy spiraling forward, brushing against Isabel's anchor. Sparks danced across the room, ripping through the dim light, igniting threads of magic, testing endurance, patience, and willpower. Isabel's ruin flared in response, threads lashing back, countering, twisting, anchoring, binding the phoenix flame in invisible coils. Calanus growled, a deep, frustrated, arousal-laced sound, sensing for the first time in millennia a force she could not simply consume or dominate. "Clever," Calanus breathed, voice low, flirtatious, dangerous, stepping in closer, letting the heat of her presence brush Isabel's skin, letting her dominance barely flex against the little witch, teasing, daring, testing limits. "Curiosity does not equal surrender," Isabel whispered, yet a flicker of intrigue ran through her pulse, threads of magic dancing along Calanus' fire like fingers tracing embers. Calanus chuckled softly, predatory and playful all at once, letting her flame ripple, a swirl of light and heat around them, each wave pressing against Isabel, testing, teasing, flirting with both her body and her magic. "Ah, resistance and fire entwined," Calanus murmured, eyes locking with Isabel's, reading her every heartbeat, every magical pulse. "I think I like this little game." And in the apartment, fire and anchor collided, coiled, and danced, not in destruction but in fascination, the first true meeting of equal forces, a trial neither could ignore, a spark that promised something far more consuming than challenge alone. Chapter 35: Fire and Anchor Entwined. The apartment shimmered with residual heat, the phoenix flame wrapping the space in flickering golds and reds, muscles flexing beneath Calanus' coat like restrained storms. Her fangs glinted faintly, vampire hunger coiling beneath her ribs, werewolf strength humming through her limbs, witch charms humming soft, yet all of it, all that raw, ancient power, met the unyielding barrier of Isabel's coven anchor. Calanus exhaled slowly, a low, rumbling sound vibrating through the floorboards, and stepped back, letting the flames retract, edges licking at Isabel's magic, testing, retreating, reconsidering. "Ah," she murmured, voice soft, but edged with frustration and fascination, "so brute strength, fire, and charm, useless." Her eyes flicked across Isabel, reading every pulse, every thread, every subtle flicker of magic, realizing that the little witch was not an obstacle, but a key. Isabel's ruin glowed steadily, threading into the air, anchoring, pulsing, and waiting, and Calanus understood. To reclaim herself, to regain what she had lost, she needed not dominance, but cooperation. Calanus moved closer, fingertips brushing against the outer edge of Isabel's magic, a tentative contact that sparked threads of fire and anchor entwining like twin serpents. "Very well, little witch," she murmured, voice low, teasing yet earnest, "we do this, together. Not as master and servant, not as predator and prey. Together." Isabel's ruin pulsed brighter, accepting the touch but keeping her independence, and she whispered softly, This is dangerous. Are you certain you can follow my lead?" Calanus smirked, arrogance tempered with curiosity, desire, and an unspoken respect. "I follow no one, little witch, but I will try, if it means finally seeing what we can create together." She let the phoenix fire wrap around her arm, coiling toward Isabel's magic, threads of anchor and flame twisting, testing, merging, a delicate dance of fire and restraint, power and control. Isabel's eyes softened fractionally, a flicker of trust sparking in the depths of her gaze, and she guided the threads carefully, anchoring Calanus' flame, directing it without bending it, merging fire and magic into a single, controlled current. The apartment hummed with energy, walls glowing faintly from the coiled phoenix fire and coven threads, as Calanus felt centuries of strength tangling with centuries of knowledge, restraint, and cleverness, a perfect storm of power tempered by collaboration. "So, this is cooperation," Calanus murmured, fangs flexing, claws resting lightly near, but not on Isabel, not conquest. Not domination. A new way, a new fire. Isabel's ruin pulsed again, anchoring, affirming, yet daring Calanus to trust more, and in that delicate, tense, intimate moment, something unspoken bloomed, an understanding that together, they could awaken a force neither could wield alone. Calanus' smirk softened into something almost tender, the centuries-old arrogance giving way to fascination and perhaps the faintest hint of desire, and she whispered, "Very well, little witch." Together. And for the first time in millennia, fire and anchor moved as one, not in conflict, but in harmony, a spark that promised Phoenix reborn, power restored, and something far more dangerous, the start of a bond neither fully understood, but both felt deeply. Chapter 36. The Space Between Fire and Heart. The apartment hummed with the aftermath of their first true collaboration, threads of phoenix fire and coven anchor still lingering in the air, glowing faintly like suspended sparks. Calanus stepped closer, for the first time, careful, measured, aware that sheer presence alone could overwhelm. Isabel's ruin pulsed gently, an invitation without words, a fragile tether of trust, and Calanus felt it, the first whisper of something she had never known, connection over conquest, closeness over control. "So, little witch," Calanus murmured, voice low, teasing, yet threaded with a new softness, "I've learned something today. That fire alone cannot persuade you. That strength alone cannot claim you. It's something else, isn't it?" Isabel's eyes met hers, calm, unwavering, yet flickering with cautious invitation, and she whispered, "It's authenticity, Calanus. Not dominance. Not charm. Not fear. Just what's real between us." Calanus tilted her head, smirk tugging at her lips, still infuriating, still bold, yet something in her centuries-old armor softened. She let the phoenix flame curl lazily along her fingertips, not as a threat, not as a test, but as a halo of warmth, a mirror to the anchor Isabel offered. "Authenticity," she repeated, voice low, a ripple of amusement and awe threading through it. "So, you resist, yet you allow me to be near. And here I thought little witches were predictable." Isabel's ruin pulsed brighter, threads weaving gently around Calanus' fire, not binding, not restraining, just acknowledging, coexisting, allowing. Calanus exhaled slowly, a sound of centuries held in one breath, and for the first time, she let her wings relax beneath her ribs, fangs hidden, charms silent, claws softened, her presence no longer a storm but a space, an offering of patience, fascination, and something dangerously close to reverence. "I could stay here forever," she murmured, voice laced with playfulness and something deeper, watching, waiting, learning, just to see what you are, little witch. Isabel's lips curved faintly, a subtle acknowledgement, a bridge of trust, and Calanus felt it, the pull of magic entwined with the pull of heart, a connection neither power nor hunger could fabricate. Calanus leaned slightly, not imposing, not demanding, just present, letting the space between them breathe, expand, hum with possibility, phoenix fire flickering gently, soft and inviting, echoing the anchor of the witch before her. "Very well," Calanus whispered, smirk still teasing, yet softening, "I will play your game, your rules, but beware, little witch. Even here, even soft. I am still Calanus Demetria." And in that quiet apartment, for the first time in millennia, fire and anchor, desire and restraint, arrogance, and authenticity breathed together, a slow, electric current that promised more than collaboration, something far more consuming, far more alive. Chapter 37: Ignition of Fire and Desire. The apartment was quiet, yet charged, alive with the soft hum of phoenix fire and coven magic coiling in tandem. Kalanus' eyes glinted with renewed intensity, coiled strength now tempered with fascination, as she stepped closer to Isabel. Isabel's ruin pulsed steadily, threads weaving delicately around Kalanus' aura, and she tilted her wrist slightly, letting the faintest brush of magic linger, inviting without yielding. Kalanus' fangs glinted, but her lips curved into a slow, knowing smirk, her fingers hovering near Isabel's arm. She let her hand brush the soft fabric of her sleeve, the touch lingering longer than necessary, warmth radiating, fire and curiosity intertwining, and she felt the magic respond, rising like a tide beneath her skin. "Ah, this is new," she murmured, voice low and rumbling, filled with amusement and a dangerous sweetness. "You let me touch, linger, and yet you do not yield. Clever little witch." Isabel's lips quirked faintly, a teasing resistance hiding beneath calm, her fingers twitching slightly as she allowed the contact, her magic threading into Kalanus' flame, anchoring it, steadying it, yet coaxing it alive. Kalanus exhaled slowly, savoring the sensation, the proximity, the electric tension, and for the first time in millennia, all four of her natures, the vampire, the werewolf, the witch, the phoenix, thrummed in harmony. The rebirth unlocking a fire she had not felt in centuries. Her senses sharpened, every heartbeat, every breath, every thread of magic between them registering like a symphony, the pulse in her veins a new, fierce, and dangerous fire, ignited not just by hunger, but by fascination, connection, and desire. She leaned slightly closer, letting her shoulder brush Isabel's, small contact, deliberate, electric, and felt the subtle tremor of the coven magic under her fingers. "Clever, fierce, and not afraid," Kalanus whispered, voice soft, barely a growl. "I am intrigued." Her hand lingered just above Isabel's, not pressing, not demanding, but inviting, and the fire inside her burned hotter, brighter, awakened by this small, deliberate surrender. Isabel's ruin pulsed brighter, threads weaving around Kalanus' fire, steadying, coaxing, anchoring, and a small, almost imperceptible smile flickered across her lips. She allowed the moment, a breath of closeness, a heartbeat of trust, and Kalanus felt it, connection not through dominance, but through electricity, consent, and unspoken desire. Kalanus' smirk softened, danger and allure still in her eyes, but now tempered by fascination and care, and she murmured, "So, little witch, this is something new. Not conquest, not chaos, but fire. Alive. Shared. And I intend to see just how far it burns." And in that quiet, charged apartment, reborn fire met anchored magic, wings and ruin, flame and tether, a new current sparking between them, deep and alive, promising desire, danger, and a bond that neither centuries nor power alone could ever contain. Chapter 38: Surrendered Flame. The apartment hummed, charged not with Quadbrid fire or coven magic, but with something far more dangerous: anticipation, awareness, and unspoken longing. Kalanus moved slowly, claws hidden, fangs just a memory behind soft lips. Her centuries of dominance had taught her every way to command, compel, and control, yet here, none of it worked, none of it mattered. She felt it, heat pooling low, fire racing through veins not from hunger, not from power, but from desire itself, raw, pure, and unrelenting. Her eyes flicked to Isabel, watching every subtle movement, every pulse of magic in the ruin on her wrist, feeling the pull not of control but of magnetic attraction, something neither could contain. "So, little witch," Kalanus murmured, voice low, teasing and almost breathless, "this is new. This is not fire or blood or claw. This is you." Isabel's gaze held firm, steady, knowing, yet inviting, and she whispered softly, It is us, and only us. Nothing else matters. Calanus' smirk softened, centuries of arrogance melting into fascination, and she stepped closer, letting the flame curl just along the edges of her aura, not to threaten, not to dominate, but to mirror the pulse of desire in her chest. Her hand hovered near Isabel's, tentative, careful, yet full of intent, and when it brushed against her arm, the contact lingered, electricity sparking along the skin, fire meeting anchor in a dance of longing and vulnerability. For the first time in millennia, Calanus did not try to command, compel, or conquer. She simply allowed herself to feel, to be drawn in by the presence, the essence, the heartbeat of the little witch who had defied her every expectation. Isabel felt it too, the surrender, the trust, the genuine desire radiating from Calanus, unfiltered by magic or strength. And in that recognition, her own heart opened just a fraction, allowing the smallest thread of connection to thread through them both. Calanus exhaled slowly, the phoenix fire dimming, not extinguished, but softened, and murmured, "I've ruled, destroyed, and dominated for centuries, and yet nothing has ever made me feel like this. Not power, not hunger, not vengeance, just you." Isabel's lips curved faintly, a subtle acknowledgement, a bridge of trust, and she leaned into the brush of Calanus' hand, letting the moment linger. No spells, no fire, no claws, just them, desire and surrender in its purest form. Calanus' smirk returned, softer, dangerous, and tender all at once. "Very well, little witch, if this is what surrender feels like, I think I could grow accustomed to it." And in that quiet, charged apartment, desire burned hotter than phoenix flame, stronger than werewolf instinct, deeper than vampire hunger, fiercer than witch's magic. For the first time, Calanus Demetria surrendered, not to anyone, not to any power, but to the raw, unadulterated passion between them, and Isabel, ever cautious, ever clever, allowed that fire to brush against her own, letting it ignite something neither had dared to name before. Chapter 39. The First Surrender. The apartment was alive with a quiet hum, threads of phoenix fire and coven anchor coiling and pulsing in tandem, yet nothing here felt like battle. This was communion, resonance, raw and fragile. Calanus moved closer, every nerve singing, every heartbeat heightened by the presence of the little witch before her. Centuries of dominance, centuries of bloodlust, melted away, leaving only the magnetic pull of desire, curiosity, and something far deeper, need without control. Isabel's ruin glimmered softly, threads of magic gently tracing the edges of Calanus' aura, and she allowed her gaze to linger, steady, unflinching, yet threaded with invitation. Calanus' hand rose, tentative at first, hovering near Isabel's cheek, thumb brushing lightly across skin, and she felt the spark, a current that wasn't fire or claw or fang, but pure human and magical connection. "I've waited millennia for this," Calanus whispered, voice low, husky, trembling with restrained emotion, "and yet I didn't know it would feel like this." Isabel's lips curved faintly, a quiet acknowledgement, an opening, and without words, she leaned slightly into the brush of Calanus' hand. The smallest movement, yet it sent sparks cascading along Calanus' veins, her fire flaring in a rhythm that matched her own pulse. Calanus closed the distance slowly, deliberately, their breaths mingling, warmth meeting warmth, magic intertwining with heartbeat. Her lips hovered over Isabel's for the briefest moment, testing, tasting, sensing consent and desire, before finally pressing down in a slow, electric kiss, soft at first, a tentative surrender wrapped in centuries of longing and curiosity. Isabel's hands rose, palms against Calanus' chest, feeling the steady beat beneath layers of fire and instinct, anchoring her, grounding her, yet allowing the surge of passion to flow. The kiss deepened, hunger tempered by tenderness, desire tempered by trust, and for the first time, Calanus allowed herself to feel fully, not as predator, not as Quadbrid, not as vampire werewolf witch phoenix, but simply as her. The touch followed the kiss, fingers threading into hair, palms tracing arms, bodies drawing closer, a coil of power, desire, and protection, yet softened by the anchor of Isabel's presence. So this is surrender, Calanus murmured against her lips, voice trembling, amused, enthralled, not by force, not by fire, but by you. Isabel's lips curved into a small, steady smile, anchoring, coaxing, inviting, and she whispered, "And this is trust." In that quiet apartment, magic and passion collided, fused and ignited, fire, ruin, and heart moving together in the first true surrender of two souls who had been forged in blood, fire, and centuries of separation. For the first time in millennia, Calanus Demetria was not conquering, not hunting, not testing. She was simply found in the warmth, the heartbeat, and the surrender of the little witch who had refused to yield. Chapter 40. The Bond Ignited. The apartment seemed to breathe with them, walls and air vibrating softly with the pulse of Quadbrid fire and coven magic intertwined. Calanus' senses were alight, every nerve, every vein, every whisper of air around her screaming with sensation, yet it was no longer the thrill of hunt or domination. This was something entirely new. She let Isabel take the lead, her hands guiding, her eyes steady, her aura calm but unyielding, and Calanus followed without hesitation. Every motion, every brush of skin, every whispered instruction, she absorbed like sunlight into a long-frozen soul. "I've lived centuries," Calanus murmured, voice husky, almost reverent, ruling, hunting, destroying, and yet I never felt this. Not like this. Isabel's fingers traced along her arms, palms against skin, against shoulders, down to hands, and Calanus shivered, not from hunger or instinct, but from the raw, unfiltered connection of two beings meeting in heart, body, and magic. The Quadbrid fire inside her no longer burned wild and solitary, but pulsed in rhythm with Isabel's ruin, threads of coven magic weaving through flame, through blood, through heart, and Calanus gasped softly, the sensation almost overwhelming in its intensity. Isabel's lips brushed hers again, this time slower, more deliberate, coaxing, guiding, anchoring, and Calanus surrendered fully, allowing herself to be led, allowing herself to feel every peak and whisper of sensation, every heartbeat and flicker of desire, allowing Isabel to take her completely apart. "You take me higher than I ever knew I could go," Calanus murmured between kisses, voice trembling with awe and passion, "not with power, not with fire, not with claw or fang, but with you." Their bodies moved in harmony, hands and wings, ruin and fire, heartbeats and breaths sinking, and for the first time, Calanus felt the true weight and warmth of connection, the bond of two souls choosing each other over millennia of solitude and conquest. Every touch was a spark, every kiss a tether, every shared breath a pulse of magic and desire, and she realized she had never truly known herself until the little witch allowed her to follow, to surrender, to feel unguarded, to bond. When they paused, foreheads pressed together, breaths mingling, Calanus' smirk softened, danger and pride tempered by awe, and she whispered, I am yours. Not by force, not by power, but because I choose to be." Isabel's lips curved, soft, steady, triumphant in that quiet way, and she murmured back, "And I choose you, Calanus." Every fire, every shadow, every heartbeat. In that quiet apartment, time seemed to stretch, Quadbrid fire and coven magic intertwining, phoenix, vampire, werewolf, and witch all harmonizing, and the bond was no longer about dominance or survival. It was about trust, surrender, and the first real connection either had known in centuries. Chapter 41. Convergence. The room was still, yet alive, a hum vibrating through walls, air, and even time itself, the echo of Quadbrid fire entwined with coven magic, a resonance that could be felt in bone and blood. Calanus' senses were heightened beyond anything she had known, every whisper of Isabel's heartbeat, every pulse of magic along her wrist, every subtle breath and movement was amplified, intoxicating, addictive. She held Isabel close, claws and fangs resting but ready, her vampire and werewolf instincts softened by the pulse of the coven magic anchoring her, and she realized, truly, for the first time in millennia, that this connection was the ultimate power. Not domination, not destruction, not blood or vengeance, but unity, trust, and shared desire. I cannot be anywhere else, Calanus murmured, voice low, husky, threaded with awe and longing, not in all of time, all of worlds. I cannot get enough of this of you. Isabel's fingers traced along her arms, anchoring, teasing, grounding, and still igniting, and she smiled softly, feeling the convergence of their magic, their fire, and their hearts, whispering, "Then stay here with me. We are stronger together than apart. Stronger than anything they could ever imagine." Calanus' smirk returned, softened, dangerous, and filled with an almost childlike awe, as she pressed her forehead to Isabel's, breath mingling, fire and magic colliding, weaving a bond neither had ever known possible. For a moment, time seemed to pause, the centuries of hunt, of conquest, of blood, all of it melting away, leaving only this, the Quadbrid and the coven which, entwined, unshakable, unstoppable. Calanus let herself relax completely, not surrendering to force, but surrendering to connection, and it was dizzying, intoxicating, exhilarating. Her phoenix fire shimmered, not burning wildly, but perfectly synchronized with the threads of Isabel's coven magic, a new form of energy, fierce yet tender, wild yet contained, ancient yet reborn. I have ruled, destroyed, conquered, and yet nothing compares to this, Calanus whispered, voice trembling with awe and desire. With you, little witch, I am whole. Isabel's lips brushed against hers, soft, grounding, igniting, and she murmured back, and together, we are unstoppable. In that quiet apartment, history was being rewritten. The world had never seen an ancient Quadbrid and a trillium moon coven which converge in such perfect harmony, a bond of power, desire, and trust that could reshape everything, break barriers, and command forces no one dared to challenge. Calanus' hands lingered on Isabel's waist, thumbs tracing magic and skin, and she laughed softly, part disbelief, part joy. I've lived 1,000 lifetimes, and I could live 1,000 more just like this, in your arms. Isabel's smile was steady, calm, and full of certainty, the anchor in the storm of Calanus' fire, as she whispered, "Then we will. Together. Always." And in that embrace, two ancient powers, two hearts, two wills converged into something the world had never known, a fire without destruction, a magic without control, a bond without equal, and neither Calanus nor Isabel would ever want to be anywhere else. Epilogue: the fire between them. The city lights shimmered against the water, but Calanus barely noticed. Her senses were attuned only to the warmth, the pulse, the heartbeat of the witch before her. Small battles erupted here and there, Van Helsing remnants, boardroom machinations, rogue hunters, but none of it mattered. Her world, her fire, her focus, always circled back to Isabel. Isabel leaned against the edge of the sleek marble countertop, watching Calanus with that quiet, teasing exasperation she always carried. Calanus, smirk ever present, fangs barely visible in a grin, moved like a whisper and pinned Isabel beneath her on the soft rug, hands braced lightly, not to harm, but to dominate with playfulness. "Stop calling me little witch," Isabel said, breathless but steady, a flicker of amusement and warning in her eyes. Calanus' smirk widened, one eyebrow arched, voice a low, sultry purr. "Oh? And if I don't? Then I'll make you stop," Isabel replied, fingers brushing her jaw, magic teasing, daring, anchoring. Calanus laughed softly, the sound rich and dangerous, yet softened by the trust and connection flowing between them. "Try, little witch. Try and see how I respond." Their fingers entwined, a dance of dominance and surrender, of fire and anchor, of millennia of power meeting quiet defiance, and Calanus felt it all, the phoenix fire, the werewolf's pulse, the vampire's heat, the witch's magic, tempered, focused, and reborn in the safety of Isabel's arms. The battles that erupted beyond their door were fleeting ripples compared to this storm of connection. Calanus could feel the world bending to their convergence, but she didn't care about conquest anymore. Not while Isabel's hand rested on her chest, not while her lips lingered on Calanus in playful challenge and slow surrender. "You know," Isabel murmured, eyes glittering with mischief and magic, "I think you enjoy this too much." "Maybe," Calanus admitted, voice soft, smirk still teasing, but her wings relaxed, her fire contained, "but only because it's with you." And there, in the quiet hum of their apartment, after battles and blood, after centuries and lies, after fire and magic and loss, Calanus realized that nothing else mattered, and nothing else ever would. Her phoenix, her quadbrid power, her centuries of experience, all of it found its apex in the warmth, the defiance, and the laughter of the little witch pinned beneath her. "Then stay," Isabel whispered, fingers brushing her lips. "Stay, and let me be the anchor you never knew you needed." Calanus' smirk softened into something rarer, almost tender, as she lowered her head, letting her forehead brush against Isabel's, and whispered, "I will stay. Always." The city hummed outside, small battles fought, small victories won, but the ultimate conquest, the one that Calanus craved more than any throne, any territory, any power, was Isabel. And in that, their fire burned brighter than it ever had, unyielding, eternal, untouchable. The sun had barely crested the city skyline when Calanus tried to sweep into the kitchen, leather coat draped, aura humming with early morning dominance. "Coffee first, little witch," she growled, smirk curling. Isabel, standing behind her with a mug in hand, wrapped an arm around Calanus' waist, pressing her against the counter, lips brushing her neck, whispered, "Not today, smirk face. You take orders in the morning, not give them." Calanus laughed, a deep, throaty sound, resisting just enough to feel Isabel's magic tangle with her phoenix fire. Minutes later, the smirk softened, the dominance simmering into shared warmth, and even the sun outside seemed to pale next to the heat between them. In the city's streets, a rogue hunter dared to cross Calanus. She moved with fluid, predatory grace, vampire, werewolf, phoenix, and witch instincts flaring, ready to strike. Isabel's hand on her arm stopped her mid-step, magic pulsing through touch, grounding the storm, whispering, "Breathe, Calanus. Let me handle this." Calanus' eyes glinted with fire, but she allowed it, letting Isabel's calm, fierce authority guide her, and the hunter vanished in confusion and terror. Later, back in their apartment, the predator who could flatten cities collapsed into Isabel's arms, surrendering to the calm, passionate anchor of her witch. Calanus tried again at dominance, this time in the living room, pinning Isabel lightly against the couch. "Call me ancient one more time," she teased, "and You'll what?" Isabel interrupted, laughing, grabbing Calanus' wrists and holding her flush against her chest, magic wrapping softly around Calanus, yet binding her in playful surrender. "You forget. You can't control me, not ever." Calanus growled softly, smirk edged with frustration, but her eyes melting into something soft and molten, whispering, "And yet, I can't get enough of being pinned by you." The laughter turned into kisses, playful touches, and whispered confessions of fire and need, hearts racing, magic tangling, quadbrid and coven flames weaving into a rhythm that was theirs alone. At night, in the quiet hum of their apartment, Calanus curled behind Isabel, body relaxed, but still alive with instinctive energy. "Stay with me," she murmured, fingers tracing along Isabel's spine, the warmth of her magic anchoring the wildness inside Calanus. Isabel smiled softly, turning in Calanus' embrace, hands brushing her cheeks, lips brushing, "I always will, but don't think you'll dominate me while I sleep, Smurface." Calanus growled low, half frustrated, half amused, nuzzling into Isabel, letting the passion fade into a gentle, quiet fire. "Then I suppose I'll have to let you win tonight." And in that quiet intimacy, the ancient Quadbrid and the Trillium Moon Coven which discovered the simplest, fiercest truth of all, their fire, their magic, their hearts, belonged only to each other, in dominance, in surrender, in laughter, and in love. Final scene, eternal fire. The night was heavy with quiet power, the city lights shimmering far below, distant and irrelevant. Calanus stood at the window, fire simmering in her veins, eyes reflecting the moonlight, yet her focus was only on Isabel. Isabel moved silently towards her, hands brushing along Calanus' shoulders, fingers trailing sparks of coven magic that danced with the phoenix flame inside her. She pressed close, whispering low, teasing, anchoring, "You can't hide from me, Smurf face, not anymore." Calanus wrapped her arms around Isabel, eyes glinting with mischief and molten fire, and yet something softer flickered in their depths, vulnerability she hadn't allowed herself to feel in millennia. "And why would I? You've cornered me better than any hunter, any witch, any power I've ever faced." Isabel laughed, warm and low, pressing her lips briefly against Calanus' temple before sliding down to kiss her shoulder. "Because I anchor what you never knew you needed. Because I love the fire, but I love the Quadbrid beneath it even more." Calanus' hands found Isabel's waist, drawing her close, letting the Quadbrid senses hum with anticipation. Yet this time, there was no dominance, only mutual surrender. "Then take me," Calanus murmured, voice low, sultry, vulnerable. "Take me with everything you have, everything I've been waiting for 1,000 lifetimes." Isabel's fingers threaded through her hair, magic pulsing softly along Calanus' spine, intertwining with the phoenix fire, and she pressed forward, lips meeting Calanus in a kiss that was soft, searing, infinite. The smirk flickered, then melted into something raw, molten, alive, and Calanus surrendered, not to magic, not to strength, not to domination, but to love and desire that eclipsed everything else. They moved together, breath and heartbeat syncing, phoenix fire dancing with coven energy, werewolf pulse and vampire heat entwined, creating a magical rhythm that was theirs alone. Every touch, every whisper, every smirk and laugh, every teasing dominance, became a melody of surrender and devotion. Calanus pressed her forehead to Isabel's and whispered, "I could live 1,000 lifetimes and never get enough of you." Isabel smiled softly, brushing a thumb across Calanus' lips, anchoring her, grounding her, loving her, "Then live them, with me. All of them." The city hummed, the world spun, battles came and went, but in their apartment, in their arms, time itself seemed to pause. The Quadbrid witch and the Coven witch, ancient and reborn, fire and magic and desire all converging, had finally found their eternity. And there, in the quiet aftermath of everything, the ultimate truth settled between them. They were unstoppable together. They were unshakable, unbreakable, uncontainable. And they would never, ever let go. Calanus laughed softly, smirk returning, "One last spark of playful dominance, little witch. I suppose I can allow this, for now." Isabel's hands tightened around her, magic and warmth anchoring her, eyes full of challenge and love. "For now? You'll get used to surrendering to me." And in that final heartbeat, two fires became one, a bond forged across millennia, across blood, magic, and love, eternal and burning brighter than any phoenix flame, stronger than any magic, freer than any wings. Thank you so much for listening. Please subscribe and like this video and follow me for more stories. You are always welcome here, and leave me a comment or a thumbs up, just letting me know if you like the story and would like more, or is there perhaps an idea that you would like to share or let me write for you.